we can't just pick and choose who we bring the truth to. We have to bring the truth and let it do its work. And then we have to be humble enough to understand that when we are the bringers of truth, we will be loved and hated at the same time, depending on the people that actually want the truth.
Oh, my intensity is why I'm so successful. It's kind of a superpower in business that you can be on, that you have energy, that you kind of are driven, all those things for sure. But if you struggle to turn it off, which I absolutely do, there's a lot of downsides to it too. It impacts your personal life, it impacts relationships, it impacts friendships. There's all kinds of stuff like that. And so I started talking about that a little bit in 2022. And dude, people came out of the woodworks and they were like, one, I can't believe you're saying this stuff publicly. They're like, aren't you, some people were like, oh, thank you. Like, I've been dealing with this, or my kid's been dealing with this, or my spouse, whatever. And, it's nice to know there are other people out there who are, who kind of experience these things as well. But there was another side where people were like, aren't you worried that someone who could potentially do business with you or hire you to speak or whatever isn't going to bring you in or isn't going to want to work with you because of what you shared? And I was like, if someone doesn't want to do business with me because I have a severe form of ADHD that I like have to deal with every day, I don't want to work with them. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like it makes me a bad person or I do bad things. I just tend to be dialed a lot and, sometimes get out over my skis. Like, that's not, like, I believe that by being, we shouldn't share, nor do we need to share every freaking detail of our lives. Like, I don't think, that stuff is gratuitous, I think, and a little masturbatory. But I do think being open about some of the challenges, particularly as they relate to our interpersonal relationships, our own development or business, these are real things. Like, our personal lives impact our business lives. And if we pretend like they don't, we compartmentalize them, you're missing a huge part of the equation. So I'm very pro transparency and authenticity as long as it's coming from a good place and it's not being used to manipulate someone.
Manipulate. Yeah, I mean, most of my kids are ADHD. I'm ADHD. I don't think it's a problem in the sense that my mind thinks in images, my mind thinks in double entendres when I write music. I had a good buddy who's pretty successful in business, who's kind of like old school, and he just looked at me and he said, "You've been given a gift from God. Your brain processes very quick." So it's, if anybody who knows anything, there's a lot of information out there, would know that you'd probably want someone with an hyper ADHD in your circle because their creativity is going to be off the charts. And then not only I related to you because not only do you and I have ADHD, but everybody's done the DISC assessment or done other personalities, but I'm a controller promoter, which is one of the leadership development courses I went through. That's what they called it. But I got like high executable skill sets, and then I'm very passionate and I can sell and I can perform. And so it is very much a superpower because when you have a brain, a computing chip at the level that it is, plus the ability to execute, plus the personality to put yourself out there, I mean, you could really conquer the world. The flip side of that is I do have 3 daughters in the home and my wife, all women, most teenage girls. And that intensity is not fruitful in the home, like you said. It's not, they don't feel safe with that intensity. They feel safe when I have calm energy, when I'm present, when I can listen to them, right? And so, it's, to me, it is, the good comes with the bad. And those people that you're supposed to roll with will respect you. I just had an incident with a client that I never expected. Typically, I'll have stuff that happens, in business where like a client sells their company and it's disappointing because you lose a client and it had nothing to do with you. And I do a lot of Google ads, and I had this client and we had just gotten started. They paid a lot of money and the CEO was really cool with me, and then he got busy. He handed me off to his right-hand man. And then his right-hand man basically told me I can't call him. I can only email him. Email first, call second, text third, which is cool. But part of the agreement is that we need to be able to communicate and get feedback. And long and the short is, I took a passive approach, which is not typically my personality because it's a new relationship. And their intercommunications with their own team fell apart. And not only were we doing our job, we were getting them results, but they didn't think they were getting results because they weren't reading their emails. So the way you are and the way I am, I don't do that very well. I'm not really gracious. I'm like, are you like your internal team emailed you, CC'd everybody, and 3 weeks later you ask me and tell me you didn't get any leads, and you have literally an email from your internal team? Like, it's so hard for me not to basically light you up, because it's just like, dude, there's receipts, there's evidence. You're not doing your due diligence, and then you're calling our services into question while your pants are down. And so I had to make a decision. It got so bad, and I could tell that two of the employees had dropped the ball so much that human nature is that typically, when the boss comes in, they're going to try to sweep it under the rug and blame it on the vendor. And so as an owner myself and a top salesman in my career and a coach, and I did what I would want someone to do for me. I reached out to the CEO, text him, here's what's going on. I'm at a loss. The irony is I second guessed that decision for a long time because he reacted adversely. He was pissed because he was on vacation. He calls his right-hand man, lights him up. His right-hand man calls me, lights me up. And his right-hand man is basically like, you shouldn't want around me. In my mind, I'm thinking, well, you're not my employee and you're incompetent. And your owner's spending a lot of money and you're not really admitting where your problems are. So I look at that situation and the question is, should I have texted the owner? Well, I couldn't call him, but in my mind, the way I'm wired, it is my responsibility to communicate with that CEO because he's made a substantial investment and I can see the gaps, and he's trusting his right-hand man to see the gaps, and the right-hand man is hiding the gaps. And so for me, it's like, if he's the right type of client, he's going to text me and say, dude, thank you for this information. I'll get it corrected. I'm on vacation. Give me a couple weeks. Instead, it was, this guy's calling me on my vacation. It's unprofessional. So here's a situation where one person says it's unprofessional, whereas another high-octane person like me or you, if I was doing something for you and I text you that, and you were like, you wouldn't want to wait 2 weeks. And even if you're on vacation, you'd be like, dude, I'm available. That's why I'm a boss. Like, I need to know this stuff. I don't want to wait 2 weeks and come back and find out later, or never find out because a vendor was too scared to tell me and pissed me off. So those are hard moments because it's like, even though my wife can tell me you didn't do anything wrong, like you're operating at a high level of excellence, I second guess it. It's like, well, maybe I shouldn't have texted him. Maybe I should have waited a couple weeks. Maybe I should have confronted the right-hand man. But if I confronted the right-hand man, he's not my employee. What am I going to tell him? You're not reading your emails. You're not doing your due diligence. Like, this guy's the VP of a company. Like, how's that going to go over? Right? So, but like, even though I run a marketing agency, I'm still a type A, hyper ADHD, go-getter, motivation speaker. Like, I can't take that accountability away. I can't just sit there and watch, bullshit go on and not say anything. And the problem is when you speak up, there is a group of people that will love you to death because they want that truth. And for every time you speak up, there's another group of people that look at you and attack you or call you unprofessional or slander you or treat you. And it's a hard place to live because sometimes I don't have the confidence. Like, I in a moment I did what I thought was right, but the response causes me to question it even though I know it was right. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, it does. And so it's funny, man. I just started the bottom half of my forearm for tattoo. I've told people on the show before, I have an American flag and cross on my upper arm, and I just started the lower arm. And the lower arm is it's going to be Prometheus. And for those of you who are unfamiliar, Prometheus was a titan who gave mankind fire. And because he gave mankind the secret to fire, he was punished. And the lesson that I've always taken from the story of Prometheus, and there's different ways to read it, but the lesson that I've always taken is the cost. There is a cost to truth. There is a cost to to living by your values. There's a cost to living authentically, and you have to make that choice. I've had it happen to me many times in my career. It's funny. I'm single, and I went out on a date the other day, right? And I'm, first date, whatever, it's all good. And we're talking about stuff, and you know, dude, I don't know how long it's been since you've dated. It's you know,
I've been married. I don't want to know, but I've been married 17 years, and I knew my wife since seventh grade. But if I had to go date, I don't know if I would be able to do it.
yeah, it's tough, man. It's tough, and it's not like this isn't like a man woman thing or whatever. It's tough because, um, you know, we have these, our worlds aren't, we don't commune as much as we used to, right? It used to be everything you did in your life, or most things you did in your life, you were communing in some way, right? You know, it could be, you know, going to get a coffee in the morning, going to a community group, going to a church group, going to, you know, country club function, you know, whatever, right? And we still do those things in part, but certainly not as much as we do. So you meet people online, you meet people in more impersonal ways, and you have these conversations. My point to this was like, somehow, like, you know, people lying came up in the conversation, right? And I think this happens a lot. Like, a lot of people use different dating apps, mostly as just like hookup things, whatever. Long story short, I said to the woman, I was like, you know, I I, I don't really lie, mostly because I'm really shitty at it. Because my brain, you know what I mean? Like, not necessarily that, you know, I don't want to be like so holier than thou. Like, it's not that you know, that I can't say that I wouldn't. I mean, I'm a sinner like anyone else, but it's mostly I'm just really bad at it because my brain, like the way my brain works, it moves so fast that, like, I've learned I don't have the ability to keep the lie narrative like
Remember the lie?
intact. Yeah, like it's just like, so it's just so I've just found it's so much easier to just be honest about the way I'm feeling. Okay. Well, when you live this way and you, like what you did, right? You were being honest. You were saying, "Hey, you paid me a ton of money, right? I want to do a good job for you." And there is a very clear block as to you getting the value that I believe you can get from my service. You were living your truth, right? You were being honest about what you saw. And that, you know, just from our brief time knowing each other, you know, I can tell is a core value of yours. And when you do that, there is always a cost to it. And I believe most people are unwilling to pay that cost, which is why there's so much dishonesty and misinformation. I mean, just go on X, and I don't care what side you're on or what topic it is, right? There's people making shit up, and literally, you know, Elon created an entire tool to try to validate some of these statements people are making. And I think it comes back to this idea that there is absolutely a cost to your truth. And I think we all have to just do the calculation in our brain of, am I willing to accept the consequences that I may or may not know what they are in
Yeah.
exchange for living the way I see the world, and being willing to speak up, or at least represent those values when it's appropriate. And I made that calculation a long time ago. I think it was unconscious. It's now a very conscious decision. But dude, every truth comes with a cost, and it's just absolutely positively the way the world works.
Well, you know, I think for me, I've been through enough in life that I'm not afraid to speak the truth, and I try to keep myself detached from the financial side of it, because that is the one way to get yourself to buckle under pressure, right? And so even if I, let's say, need the money, or even if, like, I don't ever need the money. Does that make sense? I don't ever need the opportunity so much that I'm not going to be honest. And part of it is I can't respect myself if I'm not honest with you, because I've been a coach for so long and I've gotten paid to tell people the truth. Like, I'm literally paid to tell them what their team won't tell them. And it's a very natural element for me, because I typically tell the truth. I'm not saying that I'm always right in what I'm telling, but you're going to get my perspective, and you're paying me for my perspective. It was one of those situations, I think, that I thought this guy was on the same frequency, because the guy who referred him to me, and when we first met, I thought he was going to be the one that's like, wow, this guy must be in a really hard spot. My guy didn't do his job that he would text me on vacation, and he must really care, because even my analyst on my team was like, dude, most companies I work for, they wouldn't even address it. They would sweep it under the rug, just take their money. And he's like, you care. And because you care, you cannot sit back and watch the house burn down. Even if I'm going to make money off of someone's house burn down, it's just not innately. I won't respect myself if I, in exchange for money, watch you crash and burn. God has given me the ability to see things with the gift, to say things with the boldness. And I've always said that there's never an easy way to give a hard truth. There's never a perfect way to tell somebody that, dude, I see the way you're talking to your wife, or you laid your hands on your wife in this situation. There's no easy way for me to deliver that to a buddy to try to help him. It's all ugly. He's gonna take it a certain way, but I've learned that it's more about the willingness of the man to actually tell the truth, like you said. But it has to do with motive, not arrogance, not judgment, but saying, I know that this is for this person's benefit. It's just, I think where I struggle is when I am expecting because it's 50-50 for me. Some people, it's what gives me a good reputation or why people respect me. But then you get situations where people don't respect you and it hurts your reputation. And so that causes, I think I hate the amount of second guessing after something, because I'm so relational. I don't want to hurt a relationship. And the only reason I'm telling this person the truth is because I value the relationship and I value them as a human enough to tell them the truth. So in pursuit of valuing somebody enough, I could actually lose the relationship. And that's painful for me because I'm just such a relational human. If that makes sense.
Yeah, no. And there's something, there's a, I'm going to paraphrase a little, but your most recent song that you put out, Dark Road, and I want to get into your backstory in a second and stuff, but I loved it. I thought it was phenomenal. And I'll have it linked up and everything for everybody in the show notes so you can listen as well. Maybe I'll even splice in just a couple sections just so you can kind of
use
hear it.
some of it on this if you want. It should be coming out soon on digital outlets, or I don't know how long it takes you to get the podcast out, but it's in the release process. They just got to approve it, so it should be out there soon on all the streaming platforms.
Well, what I loved about the song Dark Road was this idea of kind of entering the darkness and living in reality, right? Like this is a big construct or filtering system that I've been using in my own life the last few years. Is like, I can want something to be true, but if it's not true, it's not true, right? Like I can want someone to like me. I can want the world to work in a certain way. I can want someone to react to something in X way or Y way, but if that's not actually what happens, I have to live in that reality, and I have to operate and assess myself through what's really happening in front of my eyes. And I thought that, I don't think that's the only message in the song. The song's phenomenal. I really liked it. I listened to it like 3 or 4 times. But this idea of like, and tell me where I'm wrong on this and a little bit too, if it's not the intention, but like what I took from it was like, in order to walk that path, there is darkness on the road. Like you can't avoid it, and we have to be aware of it. And maybe just talk a little bit through maybe that song and behind it and the concept in general, because dude, I love the way you approach these things, and the messages in your songs are absolutely phenomenal. Yeah. And just hit me with that.
So music's therapy for me too. I don't like not being in control. It's never changed, no matter what the opportunity is. And if I'm not careful, I freak out when I don't have control. Right? I get very anxious. I have to be busy, and I don't like dark roads because I cannot see what's on the other side. And yet, in order to get anywhere worth getting, it's the windy roads that are dark, right? The things that you want to go after. And the idea was, so much of us, which is me too, in different seasons of my life, and it changes because you could go after something that's even bigger than you've ever wanted, and the road is dark and you don't know what's going to be the outcome, and the risk could be so high. Are you willing to enter the darkness to get to the light? And that most people aren't. And I, at times, like, I have to remind myself that is literally the fundamental of life. Like, people are not willing to change their jobs to go do something different because they want what's safe. They want what they can see, and they want what they know. And I don't blame people for that. That's human nature. But when they don't feel alive, when they feel complacent, when they feel discouraged, when they feel depressed, when they feel like they don't have anything in their life that's worth pursuing, it's because they've chosen what's safe. And so the idea of the dark road is that, like, Edison, how many times did it take for him to actually create the light bulb? What was the amount of tries he took?
The myth is 1,000.
Okay, so I can imagine there were probably some dark thoughts there. I mean, he didn't know he was going to get it at 1,000. Yeah, what, at 100, at 200, or what part did he hit a part and saying, "What the f am I doing?" Right? So much of the things I go through, and I don't know if you go through this too, but like, so I just got confirmation that I'm performing at the MGM Grand at the PHP conference, which is crazy because that's like the biggest event I've ever done. But when I was told about the opportunity 2 months ago, the unknown made me very anxious because I didn't want to be rejected. So the bigger the opportunity, the more anxiety I had because I didn't want to be rejected. I didn't want to get my hopes up. And a lot of people won't go after things that are incredible because they don't want to go through that process. It's not been fun the last 2 months. And I'm hoping that I can learn to manage these situations better and my expectations, because it's not a fun way to live when you have an opportunity that could be life-changing and then you're just strung up about it, right? When it should be something you should be excited about, be grateful for. So it's not the way I like to live, but it's, in the gaps, I tend to be really, really anxious. And I just look at the situation and it's working itself out, and it's even a good thing, but it was still what? It was still an unknown. It's unknown if I'm going to feel rejected. It's unknown if I'm going to spiral into depression, or it's unknown if it's going to lead to the PBD Valuetainment Conference. It's unknown and it's just sometimes because of my brain and how fast it runs, it comes up with all of these sequences. And sometimes it would be easier just not to pursue anything worth pursuing, because at least I don't have to deal with my brain. I don't have to deal with the unknowns. I don't have to deal with the emotions. But on the flip side, I get to rap at the MGM. Ray Lewis is going to be there, Coach K, and I'm going to be rapping in front of 15,000 people. So that's the other side of the dark road. So it's just kind of like, I don't know if that makes sense. I mean, it's not saying that that's all the song's about, but really most of my life is about, I have no idea what's coming. I've had a chronic illness with long COVID for 4 years. I never plan on being in motivational speaking base. I never plan on acquiring a marketing agency. My life has been very much the unknown for the last few years, and it's very uncomfortable. It's incredibly uncomfortable, but you don't know what you don't know. No, you won't know if you don't go. You won't know if you don't grow. So embrace the dark road, see how things unfold.
I
That's
love it, man.
entrepreneurship. That's life. So I don't know what I don't know on the other side of this. I won't know if I don't ever go, and I definitely won't know if I don't keep growing. So embrace it, because right there, that's my TEDx talk, my shadow box. You got a TEDx talk. It was only a year ago I started rapping at insurance conferences. I never would have expected that I'd be at this event a year later. So for me, my life is literally unknown. Some of the chronic illnesses and things I've dealt with, I've had to trust in God. And I sometimes I ask him for like it to be less unknown. So I'd like to know the future a little bit more, but it's just not where he has me. So I have to constantly enter a dark road, and it's like it can be draining, but it's so riveting when you get to the other side. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, it completely does. I think, I talk about this on the show quite a bit, right? I talk about my life. We obviously interviewed a ton of tremendous, high achieving, interesting, dynamic, smart people like yourself. And I think I say this all the time to people, like, I know I talk about entrepreneurship a lot. I talk about pushing, growing, constantly getting better, becoming the best version of yourself. And I have people push back and they're like, I'm happy with my life. And I'm like, that's fucking amazing. That's amazing. Like, you don't need to have my life. I don't, what I mean? Like, you work a government job and you push paper across a desk for 8 hours a day, but you do it so that you can be at every one of your kids' soccer games or baseball games or whatever the thing is that you want to do. You're home every day to cook dinner with your wife or your, whatever. God bless you. Like, that's amazing. I'm talking and specifically speaking to the individuals who are unhappy with the life that they're living. And this idea that you're going to achieve something without darkness, without pain, without frustration, without confusion, without anxiety is again, going back to my original comment, is not living in reality. Unfortunately, the thing that is going to light you up more than anything else in your life, it is mandatory that that thing comes with darkness. The juice would not be worth the squeeze, right? It's the easy shit, the easy wins, the $27 PDF that you buy off Instagram that teaches you how to create a Facebook, TikTok channel that goes viral and makes you all this money on the side while you do nothing. There's zero pain, therefore there's actually zero upside to that, right? So it's the willingness to step into that darkness, as you put it, and say, look, like, I may get thrashed. I may have days where I'm sitting on the couch at the end of the day and I'm so stressed and so anxious that I cannot close my eyes. That might happen. But if you believe and are committed to the path that you're on, there is always light on the other side. Always. It's just how long are you willing to endure it? And as you stated, dude, everything you've said, I mirror all those feelings. And I'm sure thousands of people listening to this podcast mirror those feelings, who are on paths to do amazing things. I mean, this opportunity, I remember, so for the audience listening, Nick and I met at Agents Brokers United in Las Vegas a few months ago, 6 months ago, whatever it was. I can't even remember. Maybe like 4 months ago.
It was April, maybe a couple months ago. April,
yeah,
May,
April,
June?
whatever.
April.
Yeah. And Nick did a rap at the, kind of two speakers, or one speaker before me, kind of lights the crowd up, motivational, loved it. And then, and that was great. And I loved what you did. And I immediately went and looked up more of your stuff. But that wasn't what captured me by Nick, because you could tell something about somebody, like, in what they do when no one's looking. So for my talk, I went up and all the tech just decided not to work for whatever. The plug wasn't working and nothing's coming up on the screen, and I didn't really have any AV to help. And here's this guy that I don't know from Adam, outside of seeing you do your thing 20 minutes before me, right? Comes up out of the audience, jumps on stage behind the scenes, and starts working the freaking computer and gets my deck up so that I could focus on getting ready and getting the talk off the ground and get the audience going and start delivering value. And he did that to a complete stranger. And my point in saying that is, like, when we have a purpose and we live by values, like, really good things. I mean, now we have this friendship and we're chatting with each other and sharing shit, and, like, it's only developing, and, like, that could have gone nowhere. You could have done that and I could have not even said thank you to you, right? I could have just been like, whatever, and gone and done my thing, and, you walk away feeling shitty. But by putting yourself out there, right? Now we have a connection, and now you're on the show and we're going even deeper. And it's like, these moments are so important in our lives, but there's always the chance for a downside. And I think we just have to be willing to accept it. And if we can accept it and surround ourselves with people who are willing to support us in the moments that we need them, sky's the friggin' limit for our lives.
I think too, for me, it's, I used to be super arrogant. I think it just came in my early age with the gifts God gave me and my insecurities. But now I just have a lot of empathy. I remember that event. It was a cool event, but they weren't set up for music, bro. Like, I've been to a lot of events and a lot of them screw up the music because what I'm doing is pretty new, bringing hip hop into the business space. So I'm okay with it. But my sound system was screwed up right before I went before you. And we had talked about our TEDx talks and how the sound got screwed up. And so when I saw that, I just felt terrible for you, because I know what it's like. Like, I'm not a perfectionist, but I like to execute. And I remember the first day when I performed there, I left. My wife said, "You did a great job." I'm like, "But the sound was screwed up," and it just bugged me all night, dude. And it was just because I was just like, I know what it feels like when I did the PHP conference, the Greatness Conference in January, and they had an amazing system in Vegas, and we killed it. I know what that feels like, and so I hate when things are out of my control. So when I saw that, I just wanted to help you, just from, like, a fellow person who knows that you're going to be up there scrambling. And the reason, because I'm a speaker, is why I would help you is because I know what that feels like. But on the outside, people would say, well, you're a speaker. Why would you go do that? Like, you're booked there. That's for the AV team. It's like, because I know exactly what it feels like to try to give my best and watch the technology fall apart. I like some of the greatest connections God's given me in my life, though, have been through acts of service, especially ones that are not manufactured. So I don't mean this the wrong way. I'm not from the insurance space. I just started rapping in the insurance space last year. So it's not like I know you or a lot of people. I don't know all the millionaires in the space, all the dudes with the Lambos and the freaking McLarens. I'm not like hyped on anyone. I don't know anybody, and I don't sell insurance. I don't know who you are. I just thought you're a good dude, and you're driven, and I liked you, and my wife liked your talk, but I just wanted to help you. And so I think that's another lesson too, is as a high octane person, I think it's easy for me to sometimes get into the manipulative tactic of positioning myself with people of influence, and especially if you get into bigger places of influence, even though it's like, well, I want to bring them value. Yeah, part of it's that, but sometimes it's like I just want to transact for my personal gain. But having moments where there's just genuine, like, I'm just trying to help you, dude, because you're like me, and that I didn't expect anything out of it, but because you emailed your slide deck to my laptop so we could run it off my laptop, we communicated, and you emailed me the next day, and we're like, dude, thank you so much. And now I just think, like, this is cool because the best relationships I've seen are the ones that come out from organic service of one another, as opposed to a manufactured kind of what do you call it, working an angle to get that person into your network. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And not that you can't, and in all fairness, it's it's not, if you're coming from a genuine place, it's not like being tactical or strategic and building relationships doesn't work too. But I completely agree with you that there is something special about the serendipitous nature of being of service to another individual in a moment where they need it and don't expect it. That I think, I live in abundance, right? I absolutely live in abundance, and all the dark moments, going back to that concept that I've had in my life, the way I've gotten through them is through, I just cannot and do not operate. My brain can't even hold the idea of scarcity, right? And it's just, to me, there's so much opportunity in the world, and I feel like the universe, some people, a lot of people say you get one, there's the Eminem song, you get one shot, all this. I don't believe that. I love the song, right? I like the song. I think it's a great song, but I completely disagree with the idea. To me, the universe, God, whatever, God for me, but like, sometimes I just like to frame it as the universe, like, is constantly presenting us with opportunities. And if we live from a place of me, mine, my feelings, my status, what am I getting, right? The universe skips over you. Sure, you can have some success, but it's usually short-lived. It usually comes with more strain, more friction than necessary. And you can force that function. We've all met people who are very successful and are complete douchebags. But when you really dig in, and I'm sure you've seen this in your work as well, and you really get around the truly successful people, the people who've been successful for time, right? Who've had decades of success. That is not those people, right? They are thoughtful. They're kind. It doesn't mean they're not driven. It doesn't mean that they won't, excuse me, they will not attack their competitors and, try to win business and win. It doesn't mean those things. But at their heart, those are people living in abundance and are constantly have their periscope up, searching for opportunities and listening and watching, and they're available to opportunities when they present themselves. And I think this idea of scarcity versus abundance is something that is often just kind of mowed down with trite, slogans or quotes, and you're kind of, but to truly live in abundance means every day you wake up and you're excited about the possibilities that you might be presented with that day. And you have the mindset or mental models in place to actually take advantage of them when it's appropriate.
Yeah, no, it reminded me of, I was trained in this it didn't come naturally. Me and my wife in our 20s, late 20s or mid 20s, I can't remember. We paid for a program called Clement Associates. It's kind of like a landmark training. I don't know if you heard of that. Um,
Have not.
but it's heavy personal development. And we went to this program called Heart, and it's a lot of full immersion experiences where you see how you show up and have breakthroughs. It's hard to really explain. It was worth the 40,000 I probably spent at that time in the couple years, because every dime I've made, every thing I've been through, like me and my wife wonder, like, will we still be married if we didn't go to that training in regards to our mindset and the way we see things in abundance. I remember at that time I had spent everything to go to the training, dude. And I was coaching a law firm, and my buddy oversaw the law firm, so he paid me early, and he was like cash flowing me early, and I just trying to get through that program. And they were talking about abundance and giving to others. And I remember I was in line, and there was a guy behind me. I didn't know who he was, and I just bought his coffee. And coming to find out later, he was the right-hand man for a billionaire, Mike Gogan, in Montana, and he had started a helicopter program called Two Bear Air. And he was the head of security for him and ran all his assets. I had no idea, dude. I just bought him a coffee. We became friends at that event, and he tells me later that he's like, I should be buying this guy coffee, not him. The guy doesn't have any money. Well, when I decided to launch, this was like 10 years ago, when I launched my company the first time, and I just wanted to do coaching and motivational speaking. This is before I do it like I do now. I was being mentored by a millionaire, and he was just like, he's giving me all you can either write a book, you need to do this. And I was like, dude, if everyone's doing that, I don't want to do that. And I don't got time for that. So then that was the first time I wrote like a rap song, a motivational rap song. And I called my friend up who had bought the coffee. We'd become friends. And I just called him, and I had the balls to ask him, a place of abundance. I said, hey, I have this idea. And I talked about going high in the airplane. Could we use your airplane or maybe your helicopter? And it's really uncomfortable to ask him. And he was like, yeah, come on down. So I got a helicopter pilot in a helicopter for 2 full days. And then he put me up in his freaking billionaire boss's penthouse, who wasn't in town. And all I had to do is pay for my buddy and the film crew. It cost me like $1,500 to go to Montana, and we shot on a helicopter for 2 days. 2 was, it started with generosity. I didn't know who he was. I just gave. And then second, because I was coming from a place of abundance in the training I had, I thought the worst that he could say is no. And the best was that he actually said yes. And we actually become just close family friends. And I got him a TEDx. He earned it, you know what I mean? But I got him, introduced, and he just did his TEDx last year. But I'm just reminded of reminded of a place of abundance like you're talking about, and generosity. I do believe in God. I do believe we serve a generous God, and I believe we're made in the image of God. And God doesn't want a bunch of little selfish, narcissistic little versions of him that are not versions of him. It's a simple version, but he blesses generosity because it is just an attribute of him. And I do believe generosity brings incredible amounts of joy too. But so I was just helping you as a dude because I know what you're in, and it's cool. I got a podcast out of it. That's cool. Maybe we'll work together on something together. I just trying to hook a dude up with a cup of coffee so I could implement. Well, I only had $2 in my account to the process of generosity, even when I didn't have money. Sure, I got a helicopter out of it. That wasn't the plan. We got a friendship out of it, right? I think that shouldn't be the motive, but it's kind of cool when you're playing casino with God, because his returns are so much better and the risk is so much lower when you invest or when you bet, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think, and I think the lesson here for people who are listening is like, give yourself permission to be generous. I think a lot of people have very generous natures, but I think it's being generous is uncomfortable, right? You're exposing yourself. The person may reject your generosity. They may look at you funny. Other people may, why would you do that? They may look at you skeptically, like you're just trying to, they may perceive it in a way that's nefarious. And I think it exposes you in a way that a lot of people, I think, while they may have very generous natures and with people they feel safe, they may be very generous. I think we hold back a lot of times. And I think the lesson that you've shared, and I think it's wonderful, is give yourself permission to be generous, like with zero expectation of reciprocation, right? I mean, that's something I used to talk a lot about content marketing and marketing in general, like 10, 15 years ago. And one of the like slogans that I always had, whether I was coaching someone or I was up on stage, was the point of content. Yeah, you're trying to grow your business, you're trying to share a message, you're trying to build a brand, whatever. But what you're actually doing is giving without expectation of reciprocation, which means max value without any desire to receive anything in return. Now, it doesn't mean you don't want it, and it doesn't mean it's not good for your business, and it doesn't mean you're not producing the content with a purpose. However, if you approach a situation with an expectation of reciprocation, right? That creates the anxiety. It creates the success. And if you can just detach from the expectation and just say, I'm gonna buy this guy, this gal, a coffee because you know what? I'm in a freaking good mood today. They got a coffee. What the hell? I'm just gonna do it, right? You never know what's gonna happen. That person could say thank you and you never see him again. But here's the other thing you don't realize. Maybe they were in a shitty mood. Maybe it's the coffee shop, right? There's in Albany and the Hudson Valley, there's these Stewart's shops, right? They're everywhere. It's a local regional gas station chain, and that's where most people go, Stewart's. And in the past, I've bought coffees for people, different things, different times. Never seen anyone again, no problem, right? But I always think in my head, like, what if that person was having a really shitty day? And all of a sudden, I buy him a coffee. Because I've had this happen to me. I've had people buy my coffees for me every once in a while. You know, hey, you talk to someone in line, they go, I'll pick up his coffee. Okay, great. And you're like, there's like a part of your soul that just like, it's like it unclenches for a minute. And maybe you change their day. Maybe they show up at work or they show up at home and they got a smile on their face, or they're a little less frustrated or a little less anxious because they're like, geez, there are good people out there. There is someone who, you know, whatever. And you don't need to see the result to be generous. And it's the beauty and serendipity of the world that I appreciate so much. And as a believer in God, I also believe it's a big part of his process and his method. But I think we need to give ourselves permission to be generous if that is our nature and is our truth.
You know, it's crazy. I never thought about the risk of generosity because I've never seen it as a risk, but I was working for a tech company making six figures, and the girl was in contracts, and there was starting to have tension with the contracts department and the salespeople because the contracts department makes hourly, but yet they're seeing our money, right? But this girl, the owner had bought this company where it's $40 million company, bought this other company. She was integrated. She didn't choose that. I was trying to be very gracious. I was a top salesman in this branch in Montana, and I was supporting, her, and she was working so hard. I could see that, companies do mergers and then they all pretend like it's clean and they're not paying attention to anybody, in the merger that's literally freaking drowning. But I'm boots on the ground watching her drown, and I feel her stress. I feel her struggle. I see her burnout. And I remember I just put like $400 in a freaking, card and handed it, told her thank you and just told her to go out with her husband for the weekend. Now, I never perceived that anything negative could be seen from that. Because for me, I was making, I would make sometimes $30,000 in a payout, right? So $300 is like, whatever, dude. But I really cared. And it turns out her dad was a type A like me. Her dad was a narcissist. Her dad always gave her money. And then, so there's all these trauma issues that I have no idea about. I'm just trying to be generous. And she treats me as suspect. She treats me, and I can tell you it's a pretty uncomfortable feeling to be like, wait, I'm coming from such a pure place to like such a gracious thing, and you're looking at me as if I'm violating some moral code when really I'm actually this is probably the most freaking generous I've been to some random employee in a company. So I never thought about the fact that there are even dark roads in generosity. If you're going to do anything worth doing ever, whether it be like what I did for this lady, and it didn't feel good, dude. I was just like, whoa, what's going on? I knew she had trauma. I'm like, this is crazy. Later, and 6 months later, I realized all the trauma she had with her dad. But I was like, man, she's living in a trap. If she can't receive a gift, what else can't she receive? But the point is everything we do, good or bad, has a level of risk to it. And if we're not willing to take any risks, I don't know how you really love people. I don't know how you really care for people. I don't know how you really stand for anything. And I'm not saying massive risks. Everybody's wired different, but life is full of some risk. And if your goal is to avoid risk, I think you're going to be very unsatisfied with your life. And it's okay to avoid risk in business, but if you're avoiding risk in relationships, or your marriage, the best way to get a divorce is to be passive aggressive for 10 years, to have a sexless marriage because you're bitter or she's bitter because you won't ever confront anything because it's too risky, right? So it's interesting that generosity can actually have a dark road attached to it, which means that there's risk attached to it. And I've never thought about that until I remembered that incident with that employee that I thought was I couldn't in the moment conceive how that could possibly be taken as a bad thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I think a big part of this too, and, I know there's a lot of people who own companies and run companies who listen to the show, and, dealing with people is very difficult, right? Incentivizing people is very difficult. Everyone has these demons. Everyone has these, like you said, trauma from their past and viewing things from different places. And again, it's why I come all the way back to kind of where we started around authenticity and truth. And I think you get a lot more benefit of the doubt despite the internal trauma of whoever you're dealing with, if they trust, whether they agree with you or not, if they trust where you're coming from. And the only way for them to believe that is if you are acting from that place all the time, right? Like we can't be greedy one minute and generous the next and expect people to appreciate the generosity, right? It's the consistency of the values. And it's very difficult. I understand that, like, today the world moves so fast and there's so much information thrown at us, and we have so many more requirements on our time and on our lives than we've ever had before. I mean, simple contemplation, just is almost unheard of, right? People go on meditative retreats just to get space from their lives so they can think for a few minutes. These are very difficult times for us to be in. I turn to God as much as I can. I turn to my own core value structure as much as I can. Very imperfect, but I'd like to believe, and I think this is a quality, and I know this is a quality that you embody as well, is just the consistency of the values and our implementation of those values, understanding that at any given time, someone could view them for the wrong reasons. They could use them against us if they can see somewhere to leverage us. And that's just the cost of being true. But I don't know very many people or very many stories where over a long enough time horizon, someone who was true to their values and consistent through them didn't end up finding fulfillment and happiness and purpose
100%.
and meaning, which
100%.
are the things that we're all shooting for. When, you know what I mean? I look out over the political landscape and you hear all these narratives, and I just come back to this idea that like the reason so many people, in my opinion, are unhappy and unsatisfied and unfulfilled and, living through scarcity and negativity and, is just, they're living lives that they didn't choose. It's not a life that they chose. They fell into a life and just accepted it. And we're not meant to live that way. It's very, very difficult, but we're not meant to live that way.
Part of the problem is the system is built in such a way. I mean, the school system is the way it is because, the billionaires back in the day, I'm just being honest, they wanted factory workers. We knew that. And they set up the system. And not to get into politics, but we've dumbed down a society so that they can be worker bees. And there are some people who break away from the matrix. It's not easy. I have a very strong-willed personality. I can't ever go back to $100,000 job, which is what they basically offer. Like I trip out on people their entire careers, and the carrot is like this guy's worked in a tech company his entire career, and he might max out at 250 if he's the VP, and he's got no quality of life. And you're like, I could run a decent sized marketing agency and work 20 hours, 30 hours a week and make 250. Yeah, sure, I still need team members, but my goal with my team members was to pay them really well. The point I'm trying to make is that a lot of people don't ever get out of the matrix, and so that's all they know, and they think that they believe that is the best they can have, and it takes. They always talk about it. It's like someone getting out of the hood, crabs in the bucket. They're either going to try to pull you back, or they're going to be inspired to get out of the hood. It's the same time of thing with the matrix, and is my passion is like, do something that's off the wall, outside of the box. Like, I don't think I could have entered the motivational speaking market as a typical motivational speaker. I wouldn't have differentiated. But I entered into rap, and with God's blessing on my life, it's only been a year, and I'm going to be performing at the MGM. Well, how's that possible? Well, I think there's providence. I think there's creativity, and my willingness to be very uncomfortable and rap at a business conference, which seems very weird. But now it's becoming not weird. A lot of people, I think, have the capacity to pivot. They just think what their idea is or the way they would approach the market is weird. And then it's like, that's exactly what marketing is. It's what's different. It's not about who's the best. You want to be good at what you do, but I'm not the best rapper, but I'm good enough and I can hold my own with the best of them. But I don't need to be the best gangster rapper because I ain't a gangster. I'm a good CEO, and I'm a good business coach, and I'm a good businessman, and I can bring lyrics, and none of them can write what I write. So I found my lane. And it's like there's a lot of people that they may know or have a sense that they're stuck, but they have no idea what they can do, or they don't believe in the possibility of their ideas. And then you got the other side of people that are like, they think everything they do is fart gold. And you're sitting there watching them going, oh my God, stay at your 9 to 5, because if you go do what you say you're going to do, it's going to be horrible. Right. So you got those two types of people. But I do think in general, I do believe in God, and I do believe in the demonic. And I do believe that, a free life is one that's abundant of possibility and very useful for God. And a non-free life is one where I can barely take care of myself, let alone other people. And I don't care about anybody else because I can't. And I think there's so much more. And I think you see it in the government systems with the inner cities, and they just want people to have the bare minimum mindset. Hey, we'll just we'll cover your food, and just don't get married, have as many kids as you want and just abort them. And not trying to get into politics, but the point I'm trying to say is that it's a tactic. It's a tactic to bare minimum life. It's a tactic. We'll take care of your most basic needs. And I think you and I are owners of companies, and you need people that can work hard, and you can't pay everybody the world. But I also think the system's built in such a way that the top of the food chain makes all the money. Now, mind you, we do take all the risk, but that they want everybody being content with 60 grand a year, 70 grand a year, 80 grand a year.
It's a control mechanism. It's a control mechanism. We are easier to control as a population if what we believe prosperity looks like for us is $65,000 a year. If what we believe is the best thing we can ever have is $65,000 a year. And look, at different times in your career and different seasons of your life, it is what it is, right? Again, going back to living in reality. But the point is, inside of all of us is as much as we want to go. And hey, $65,000 a life positioned against a lifestyle in which you get to live your purpose or find meaning in what you're doing is fantastic.
That's important too.
It's also fantastic, right? But I think what you're describing is the friction point between I need and or want more in my life than I have today, but I'm accepting less because I believe that's all I'm capable of or all the opportunity that is accessible to me. And I think the message that I hear in your work, in your story, and one of the reasons that I just immediately connected with you was that those things, that's not a true narrative. That is not reality, right? We are all capable of these incredible things. And, not to go conspiracy theory on the control stuff, but, I do believe that there are power structures set up to control us, because if we're all pushing in our own direction, building,
Yeah.
growing, getting better, then mass mandates cannot be pushed down upon us, because we're all free thinking, independent individuals who are able to take care of ourselves. So therefore, that control mechanism is completely lost. And it's what made this country so amazing for so many years. And, something happened in the 70s. I still don't know what that is, although I research it constantly, that changed this in our country. But if my great hope for so many of the people listening to this show, and the reason that I do this show and bring people on like yourself and have them share their stories and try to introduce you into this audience's world, is because it is only through the pursuit of what makes us unique, special, and interesting and it doesn't have to be monetary or job. That could be, I want to be the best little league soccer coach that I can possibly be for my kids during their golden years. That's what I want. So I'm willing to work this job that maybe I don't love it. Maybe it's not my purpose or my meaning, but man, I get so much meaning out of being a great dad or a great mom or a great spouse that it provides me to do that. That's great. But that's your choice. You chose that, right? And I think what I find, there's so much anxiety and lack of fulfillment associated by living a life that you didn't choose.
Yeah, you feel like, I hear you on that. And I think it's right to clarify that I'm not just talking about income. I've always said, I worked with a lot of people at Costco in 2020 when everything went. I lost a job, and I got like, that was not my lowest point, because my wife was proud of me, because everybody was out of work, dude, and it was a scary time. But I really worked with a lot of really good, loyal, humble people that work really hard, and some of them, their skill sets were, this is about the best job they could get, and it's pretty sweet. They're making 60 plus, they get bonuses, and if they want to work up into management, absolute grind to work up in management for a very low pay increase. So if you get to store manager, though, you're making like $500,000, right? I mean, so like, it's crazy. You can get up there. But I remember just doing life with them, and I wasn't supposed to be there. I mean, I was supposed to be there for a season because during COVID, and I got into scarcity mode. I was like, what are the places that are going to stay open? What are the places that I can, places where there's food? I just like real scarcity. And I remember when I had to move on, and someone recruited me and was like, hey, you can make 6 figures at this company. And I'm in Montana, by the way. There's only 100,000 people in this city. I'm like, they're full of shit. I don't know if I'm allowed to cuss on your thing, but I apologize if I'm not. Just bleep it out. Fine. But I'm like, they're full of shit. But I'm like, you know what? I'll get a 60 base and go. And sure enough, I remember when I hit the 6 figures and I broke records and I grew the market. I didn't know that existed. And then I was surrounded with everybody that was making 150 to 250 as a normal way of life. And I wasn't just making 150. I was making 150 working less than 40 hours a week in Montana, which was incredible. Paid off a bunch of debt. I hadn't seen paychecks at 30K, dude. I'd never seen that before, just breaking off. But that was like opened my mind to what's possible. And it wasn't about the money, but it was about the freedom. It was about the freedom, the time freedom, working within my gifts, building something, right, that helped me understand. And then my mindset became, it's not about the money, it's about what is my capacity. And so then I started working on some film, and then I got connected in the film industry, and it was like, well, if I'm capable of doing something that makes me 1.2 million, in film or something, and I settle for 250,000 a year, that's actually settling. So it's not about, if the guy in Costco, if that's his lane, it's not about the money amount. It's about your capacity. If my capacity is I can make 1.2 million doing a film, I could make 300 grand or $500,000 speaking on stages, and I could be impacting these lives and doing this, and I choose to just settle at 250. For me, in the skill set and the wiring and the mindset and the background I have, my life is a waste, because I've allowed myself the comparison. Oh, VPs in corporate companies make 250, so I'm up there with them. Your life has nothing to do with anyone else and what they're doing. It has to do with what are you capable of? What is your capacity? And are you truly living? And you, maybe the money's right, but maybe you're a terrible father and you're okay with that because you've convinced yourself that all executives are terrible fathers. Bullshit. Why don't you go take an approach towards fatherhood like you do your executive job and make some adjustments and figure out how you can be an 8 out of 10 as a father and take it seriously, right? Maybe it's not money. But the point is for me, the only thing I know how to do, and I think you're wired the same way, and honestly, I don't think this is people's natural wiring. I think it's some people's natural wiring. So it's easy for us to tell people they should do this because I wake up and I think this way. Does that make sense? I wake up and this is my default setting. I told God the other night, I said, I don't really care what we
Yeah.
do with my life. As long as when I go to the grave, I emptied the tank in every area and I know that I fulfilled my full potential of whatever he had for me. Dude, it's just like, I can't explain it. That's what my biggest concern is that I left anything on the table. That's it. And if that's financial, if that's in my marriage, if that's in my family, if that's in contribution, if that's in, any opportunity I have. I think the good thing about people that are wired like you and I, we're so intense that some people they're not as intense, and maybe they're at 90% of their potential and they're low key, but they're like, I got another 10% in the tank. And our extreme intensity will get them another 5% out of that tank. Even though it might be a small margin to us, it's a huge margin to them. And so whether we're helping somebody, who's low key, not super ambitious, get another 5-10% out of life, or whether we're helping the freaking balls to the walls guy who's just been discouraged because he's failed to get back on the horse and go freaking conquer the world. You and I are essential to society, just like everyone else's. But our role is to motivate, elevate, inspire. And in doing so, we also going to piss a lot of people off because people who are comfortable, people who don't want the truth, won't value it when you bring it to them. But we can't just pick and choose who we bring the truth to. We have to bring the truth and let it do its work and allow the people. And then we have to be humble enough to understand that when we are the bringers of truth, we will be loved and hated at the same time, depending on the people that actually want the truth. But that's our role, and we're built for that. We have big enough egos. We have the frame for it. We have the skill set for it. And I have people tell me, like, they're like, well, you're built for this. And I'm like, I get it. Sometimes I'm tired, God. Sometimes I don't want to be the deliverer of truth. Sometimes I don't want to confront things. Sometimes I don't want to be in conflict. Sometimes I don't want to be the guy who saw that and the only guy who's going to speak up about it. Sometimes I don't want to enter the unknown. Like, this is true, dude. But it's just like, I can't help the fact that I'm, an F350 or a 3500. Like, I'm built for a max load. I can complain about the bricks in my truck bed, or I can go build something. But you and I don't get the luxury of saying we just want to be a Prius for a day. You're not, you can't, you won't ever be. And if people don't like F350s or 3500s, that's cool. They don't like dualies, that's cool. But that's who you are. That's who I am. Our job is to fulfill our purpose that God's given us, do it to the best of our ability, help as many people as we can, and be okay with the people that hate big trucks.
Dude, I'm such a fan. I'm so glad you came on the show. I know a lot of people who put events on listen. If they want to bring you in, and anybody who does events, I highly recommend you reach out to Nick. What he does with his raps are incredible. I've seen you tailor them. The messages are deep. They're rich, and you just present it in such a great way. Enormous fan. I know that we are going to work together in the future. How do people get deeper into your world if they just want to be around your content, or if they want to reach out and potentially bring you in for an event?
They can follow me at I am Nick Bravo on Instagram. Nick Bravo Speaks at YouTube. You can hit me up on LinkedIn. I'm pretty low key. If you know them really well and they hit you up, you can give them my cell number. That's one option. But also, it depends. As far as the booking goes and music and performance events, that's www.nick-bravo.com. And maybe you can put that up here when you do the podcast. In regards to like the whole marketing agency I have and all the Google ads and stuff we do for a lot of big brands, that's levelup.global. But either way, you can get to me on LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok. I'm not on TikTok as much because I don't know if it's going to get banned, and Facebook. just message me or hit me up or get my number from you. And for sure, dude. So I appreciate it. I resonate with you, man. I resonate with you. It's not easy. People think that we just make money and we're go-getters and that like we're just out there, and I'm in my head all the time, bro, trying to survive. And that's why my music's so good, because I write about what's in my head. So, you know, sometimes people can look at me and you and think, yeah, they look at us and they just think, you know, oh, they must be easy. They're strong, or I wish they were. Dude, we're all struggling. It's just, don't ever give up. Keep fighting. We all have our own issues. So hang in there. So, all right, dude. Well, hey, I appreciate this. We were meant to meet for a reason. Stay connected, Ryan. Let's stay in touch. And then, you know, Ryan, if you ever need, you know, a rap song for your brand when you're speaking places.
Oh, I've already been thinking about it. Trust me. I love it. I love it.
Because I'm in conversation with Ray Lewis right now about writing his story into a. And it's only because he's going to be at the PHP event. So he's interested potentially in me writing the story into a rap song. But yeah, I don't know. It's always good to have a 90-second intro of your story before you walk into stuff. Or, I mean, I don't know, podcast for your podcast if you need some.
I love it. I love it, man. All right, bro. Hey, appreciate you. Be good.
Let's go. Yeah, make it look easy. Hey,
Thank you for listening to The Ryan Hanley Show. Be sure to subscribe and leave us a comment or review wherever you listen to podcasts.
Came in the game for me. I never switched up, no change in me. The only thing changing.